Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, Nathan, once again. And just a heads up, Josh and I on Saturday did do a stream together. It looks though as if it went against the YouTube guidelines. Why? I'm not really sure. I'm assuming because we talked about the jab a little bit and some China stuff. I'm not really sure. But anyway, that's aside the point. Um, we will figure out a way to get that up to you guys one way or another. If we have to go completely off YouTube, then we'll do so. But we'll figure that out one way or another. But today's episode of just me today is going to be about drag shows, should they be allowed, and what legislators are doing things. So let's get into this, guys.
You're listening to Zoo Nation.
Ready? You have the cameras rolling?
Come on, man.
All right. So, what really got me on this topic today that we're going to talk about with the whole drag show issue is honestly, I do follow some uh, leftist media sites such as CNN on social media and just in general, just to kind of keep up with what, leftists say or just like hard left says about things. And honestly, this kind of caught my eye. Republicans across the country push legislation to restrict drag show performances. They go on to talk about how certain areas such as Arizona, Arkansas, Missouri, and Montana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are looking to restrict drag shows. Now, what they're really talking about is they are looking to restrict drag shows for children. Also, I will post this in the YouTube, uh, in the notes for YouTube, so you can actually read this article yourself as well. But anyway, they go on to talk about how this is, discrimination against LGBT. This is discrimination against drag, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's my question: is this stuff actually for children? Look, honestly, I am against drag shows in general. Well, Nathan, why do you say that? Well, honestly, first off, we go to Deuteronomy, we go to the Bible, we go to Deuteronomy 22:5, and that says, "A woman shall not wear man's clothing, nor shall a man put on a woman's clothing, for whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God." Deuteronomy 2:22:5. So, yeah, that's, look, that's what God says. Um, that's I'm not going to go against that, honestly. But no, also one of the reasons is these are just sick and perverse. We'll get into more of that as well as to why I believe that these things are sick and perverse. Just also coming from the mouths of drag queens, quote unquote, themselves. But these things, look, if I say let stupid be stupid, but at the same time, you cannot let children be stupid. If you continue to let your child touch the stove, that's a problem. Josh and I have talked on this issue before. I say, I would say you couldn't go to these shows until the age of probably 21. However, probably wouldn't be until 18. Most people would probably want to say till 18 because that's when you're quote unquote an adult. So I, I guess I would settle for 18. However, I would say at least 21, maybe even 25. But that's another conversation for later. But anyways, to get more into that, no, these shows should not be allowed for kids. They're not for kids. They are absolutely perverse. If it's one thing if you want to look at perverse things or watch perverse things as an adult, it's still wrong. But however, as an adult, you are able to choose what you should and should not do or want to do and what not to do. It's your choice. As a child, you don't have much choice, and it is up to the parents to protect you from these things or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, it people say, well, it's the parents' choice, and if they want to do it for it's their kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes and no. If it if a child is 7 years old and being allowed to drink alcohol, are we going to have that same argument? No, we're not. It's not going to be one of those statements of, oh well, it's their kid. No. Why? Because we know it does damage to the kid's development. Are we going to allow a 7-year-old to smoke? No. Why? Because it does damage to the child's development. Same thing for these drag shows. This does damage to the kid's development and what is reality and what is not reality. Again, this is not necessarily coming out against these drag shows. However, it's again, my standpoint on that. But again, I'm coming out against the whole thing of should children be allowed at these things, and in my opinion, no. Also, just to kind of prove a little bit of my point on what goes on at these drag shows, we have 2 clips to play for you, or 2 audio clips to play for you from an actual drag queen on what he has to say about these drag shows and what goes on.
You want a stripper or a porn star to influence your child? It makes no sense at all. A drag queen performs in a nightclub for adults. There is a lot of filth that goes on, a lot of sexual stuff that goes on. And backstage, there's a lot of nudity, sex, and drugs. Okay? So I don't think that this is an avenue you would want your child to explore. They could explore dressing up at home like we all did, like all gay boys did. We all dressed at home and we had a great time. We had a great time with our girlfriends, putting on makeup, trying on clothes, things like that. But to actually get them involved in drag is extremely, extremely irresponsible on your part. And I understand you might want to look like you're with it, that you're cool, that you're woke, that you're not a Nazi, that you're not a homophobe, whatever it may be. But you can raise your child to be just a normal, regular, everyday child without including them in gay, sexual things. And honestly, you're not doing the gay community any favors. In fact, you're hurting us, okay? We have already had a reputation of being pedophiles and being perverts and deviants. We don't need you to bring your children around. So you keep your kids at home, or take them to Disneyland, or take them to Chuck E. Cheese. But if you need your child to be entertained by a big human in a costume or in makeup, take them to the circus or something. When they turn 18, then why don't you take them to the clubs on their 18th birthday? Because it's an adult thing, okay? So don't ruin your child's life, and don't ruin us, because that's what you're doing.
Huh. Interesting. The next clip is also from the same drag queen on Fox Primetime. So let's take a listen to that one.
Kitty Demure is a drag performer, and she joins me now. So Kitty, you don't perform in front of children, do you?
No, nor would I. And thanks for having me, Jesse. No, if I was performing for an audience and I saw a child, I would walk out.
So why do these drag queens keep foisting these performances on children?
Well, a lot of the performers, I can only speak for the performers. A lot of them are just like low-level wage workers. If you notice, some of them aren't the most beautiful, the most talented. They're typically from a local club or dive bar, and they're just doing it for the tips and the money that they're getting.
So they're doing it for the money, so I guess it's the parents who are booking these drag queens to perform in front of their young children.
Well, right. The drag queen is just, giving them what they want. I mean, the market is there. I've gone against heterosexual parents saying, this is all your fault. I mean, you can't complain. And, when it's your own kind that are actually creating these events and, letting them go on.
So you're saying heterosexual parents you've spoken to and challenged them. What do they say when you say, why the heck are you booking drag queens for your young kids?
They think they're being inclusive. They think that they're teaching them some kind of valuable lesson. And I've asked them, what is the lesson to be learned to see a man dressed up, wearing a wig, and being sexual in front of your child? We used to arrest men like that.
So you're right. Like, you wouldn't hire a professional stripper, like a regular looking stripper, to perform in front of a 6-year-old. Why would they be hiring a man dressed as a woman stripper to perform in front of a 6-year-old?
I don't know. I'll tell you, honestly, I think it has something to do with using drag as a transition or as a gateway to trans kids, to make them think it's fun, pretty, magical, fantastical. And I just think big pharma, corporations, they're pushing it. And honestly, I just think it's to make more money for big pharma.
So it's profitable. Yeah, we've covered that. Sponsorship out in California, how they're doing sex change operations, and they're involved in some of these local school events. All right, Kitty, thanks for joining us.
All right, so we cut that clip just because that was the end of it. They ended up later, I guess, next week, that was 7 months ago. So yeah, these aren't up to date. Actually, that was 3 months ago. My bad. The other clip that I will show you later from the opposing view is 7 months ago about a Texas bill. Anyway, aside the point. So yeah, that was 3 months ago. So I guess they talked to the another drag queen about the opposing view. I looked for it, couldn't find it. So, or I guess I just didn't look hard enough. One of the two. Anyway, this drag queen actually brings up some interesting points. Is it about transing the kids? Is it about, big pharma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Because these things, let's not act like these don't lead into other things. Let's not act like this stuff is okay for kids to look at, or that kids have the brain power to be like, oh, this is, something that these adults do for fun, and they don't think that they are the opposite gender, or they don't think that they can become X, Y, and Z. Let's not act like a child seeing this is going to be able to tell the difference between reality and what is not, and what is fiction here. So yeah, I mean, the big question is why is this such a push to allow kids at these things? One of the reasons I believe, obviously, clearly, big pharma, just the issue of making money off of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and also just pushing an agenda for sure. But also another reason is to make you lose control of yet another thing, is your children. The Democrats and hard left, mainly hard left. When I say Democrats, I mean the hard left for the most part. There are Democrats that are even pushing against some of this stuff, but even still, the Democrats is where the hard left comes from. So anyway, the hard left has already gained control of so many institutions, the school systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now what's next? Let's invade your home. Let's invade your children. Let's take over your children. You do not teach your child whatever it is. You do not teach your child religion. We teach them the religion of the state. You do not teach your child any of this stuff. It is only what the state or the government wants to teach. And that is what is honestly, in my opinion, being pushed here. Let's take a look at the opposing view of a drag queen who has, once again, the opposing view. My bad, was upset about the bill in Texas kind of banning children from going to these things. Let's see what he has to say.
Here we are, Pride Month, celebrating life and love. And we are 2 weeks to date after a huge loss in Uvalde. And before I went to sleep last night, it was heavy on my heart, and I woke up this morning with notes on my mind. And I sent out a tweet that our God is a God of love. And children's very first teacher and role model will be their parents. And it is their parents' decision on what form of entertainment they subject them to. I hate this as my state. I've always been proud to represent Texas. I've always held strong to my roots. I am very proud to say that I'm from Mesquite and that I went to West Mesquite Baptist Church. So I'm taken back at this very moment. And what a sad day for someone like myself who believes in art and entertainment that can inspire, that can enlighten, that can encourage. I believe that my drag is a form of a superhero power. Instead of a cape and a leotard, it's a wig and a rhinestone gown. I didn't grow up with RuPaul's Drag Race. So this group of kiddos is very fortunate that they have something that maybe they can identify with that is right there on their television. And these messages are so empowering because they're messages of hope, of inspiration, and it truly it fuels me. And I really pride myself, edit that right. I pride myself on being the educator that I am.
All right. So that was just a heads up on the name of the drag queen. That was Alyssa Edwards, 7 months ago. That's the one I was telling you that was 7 months ago. It was basically against the Texas bill banning kids from drag shows. Anyway, first I want to talk about something. This drag queen talks a lot about pride, and we talk about Pride Month and et cetera, et cetera. And he ends up talking about how he looks at himself as a superhero, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, cool. That's great. Whatever. The only thing I'm going to say on how clearly prideful this person is just, I want to go back to the Bible and what that says. Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. So just referring back to that, there's something wrong with this automatically. Yeah, this person is extremely prideful, extremely arrogant, isn't really talking about the issues that this could cause for a child and their development. Just talking about them and why it's important to them, and I didn't have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, okay, cool, I didn't have RuPaul's Drag Race. Awesome. That's great. Actually, it is great that you didn't. No, this stuff is awful. For example, what? And this person also, once again, talks about our God is a God of love. That's not false. So I'm not gonna sit there and say that that's a false statement. However, our God is a jealous God. Our God does have wrath. Our God does judge. Our God does not like sin. And if you don't think, well, is this a sin or not? Again, I direct you back to Deuteronomy 22, verse 5. Just within itself, it's not only just a sin, it's an abomination. That's a problem. And to try and get children involved in this stuff is really the issue within itself. Is really a even bigger issue, actually, not an issue within itself. This whole thing is an issue within itself. However, when you try and add and say that this is okay for children to be into this stuff, no, it is not. These children cannot comprehend if this is real life or not. Sure, they might be able to say, yeah, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake, but does a child actually know what is fake? No. When I told my parents that I wanted to be Batman or Spider-Man or X, Y, and Z when I grew up, I was being legit. I didn't know that wasn't an unrealistic goal that I could not accomplish. Children do not know or cannot comprehend the forms of realism and fiction. So that's a big problem within itself there. Now, I really, this is just this within itself is a huge issue. Guys, I don't know where any of y'all stand on this, but honestly, this has got to be a topic brought up in 2024. Also, this drag queen also brings up the fact of, now they have somebody they can relate to. You can find, if you just dig deep enough, you can find anything that you can relate with anybody. When I was a kid, I watched a lot of superhero shows and cartoons and everything. And man, one of the superheroes that I related with the most, and I read a lot of comics, is I related with Spider-Man a lot. Spider-Man was my biggest and probably one of my most favorite superheroes. And one of the reasons that I related to him is because he was a normal kid who just ended up getting some superpowers, et cetera, et cetera. But even outside of that, he was a normal person. So yeah, to compare these things to something that the child can relate to, and oh, I'm a modern day superhero. No, you're trying to play superhero and you're trying to play make pretend. These are just adults trying to play make pretend. Like, who told these guys that, oh yeah, this is where the whole idea of you can be anything you want to be can go too far. You can be anything you want to be within reason. You cannot be a man if you are a woman. You cannot be a woman if you are a man. You can dress up like one. Should you? No. Why? The Bible says so. Argue with the Bible, not me. I'm gonna just leave that one there. But anyway, you have a problem with what I said. Again, I can back it up with scripture on that one. Now, as to wrap things up on this one, look, guys, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is gonna be a topic that we're gonna discuss one way or another multiple times. It's not this conversation is not over. Josh and I definitely will cover this again at some point in time because I'm sure something else will come up. But no, this is something that for topics of discussion in the 2024 election, in my opinion, need to be discussed. The transing of children, the drag shows, and just the LGBT plus agenda needs to be discussed by all sides, even Democrats as well. When is enough enough? That's the biggest question. And when are we going to say something is actually wrong and we need to stop? Again, we said a long time ago with just the gay marriage that this was a slippery slope. People said, "Oh, what slippery slope?" Well, here we are. We are still on that slippery slope, going even further and further and further downhill. Now, again, drifting further from God, sure, but even if you're not religious, if you have any moral sense, this is going way too far and too slippery. Are we at the point of a return at this point? So anyway, guys, yeah, this is definitely a topic that we're gonna discuss at some point in time again, for sure. So just wanted to give y'all a heads up on that one. But we're gonna wrap it up here, and y'all have a great and wonderful evening. This is recorded on a Sunday night, so yeah, that's why y'all have a wonderful night actually, and we will see you again next week. Have a good one.